Hi, everyone. Um, I am going live in just a few. I'm already live, but I'm going to start talking a little bit about meat products. When we go keto, due to the fat allowance and the lower carbs, we tend to get a lot of different protein varieties. And what we want to do is talk about how can we make sure that we're still choosing healthy protein varieties when we have a lot more access to a lot of options compared to maybe more traditional macros. So really, I'm going to be focusing on the biological and the physiological sides of things. My cat is trying to come up here, so. I'm not going to be talking as much about like the environmental or the ethical sides of meat. We're just going to be talking about what tends to be maybe more effective for your body in a biological sense. And I understand there are other layers to this, but we're not going there in this time. The main thing to do with selecting a meat and looking at a product that you might want to try is to have as much knowledge as you can. The more you know about something, chances are it's probably going to be a better choice for your body. So if you know things like where were the animals housed, how were they housed, how were they fed, did they get any antibiotics, did they get any hormones, what processing did the meat get, things like that is really important information. And the more of that you can find out, the better decision you can make about what you want for your body and what a good option is. And because of that, local tends to be a really good choice. A lot of times local products are products that you might know more about. You might even know the people that are making the products. They usually don't have to go as far in terms of transport, so processing might be lower or minimal, maybe same with any sort of preservative. And things like that are really valuable. So if you've got a farmer's market, if you've got a place that carries local meats, I would highly recommend looking at local whenever you can. Normally, you're going to get a lot more information about them compared to a commercial option. However, just like anything else we do, it's all about balance and moderation. If you buy some larger company meat that might not be local or it might not be grass-fed or whatever, it's not like it's going to tank your health immediately. This is always just about making the best choices we can to go forward and trying to make things better as we go, but moderation and balance in everything. So when you're looking at meat, you're going to see usually a few different labels, and I just wanted to talk through some of those labels and what they might mean and what they might not mean that people assume they do. One thing is grass-fed. That's a label that we might see often. And that's a good one to look for too. It usually means that it's usually beef, but it can be other products, bison, other animals. But basically they're eating what they would normally eat anyway. So they're being fed food that is normal for them if they were wild or on their own. But a lot of times people assume that just because something's grass-fed, it might be an organic product. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's organic. It means grass literally is what they were fed. However, sometimes grass-fed can be grain finished, and that's another label you might see as grain finished. And that means that they were fattened with grain at the end of their growth. And so they might be grass-fed, but it might not be all grass all the time. So that's something you might want to look for. And it doesn't necessarily mean organic again. If something doesn't say it's organic, don't assume it is. You'll also sometimes see vegetarian fed, and those are animals that have never even gone outside, because if they were outside, they could have consumed another animal. So those are usually animals that have never been outside and they've received nothing, any meat products. It's all just been vegetarian. With chickens, turkeys, things like that, a lot of times we see free range. And free range does mean that they had more room to move around, but it doesn't necessarily mean they had a lot of room. If you see cage free, that just means they didn't have a cage, but they may have still been all together in a big enclosure. So it's not necessarily guaranteeing anything, but it is telling you that at least they're not in the cages. If you see a natural sticker or label, it just means there's nothing artificial that was added, nothing fake. It doesn't necessarily mean it's organic. It doesn't mean that hormones weren't used, etc. And then organic usually means that they're eating organic grains and not being pastured as often. But ultimately, organic is determined by the FDA for the US and by kind of like the food safety kind of boards. There's usually a bunch of different things somebody has to go to get the organic label. A couple other things you might see is wild caught versus farms for things like salmon and seafood. And wild caught is going to be similar to grass fed, where it's one of the kind of healthiest or one of the best options if we can, because a lot of times they have better nutrient and fatty acid profiles. We talk a lot about needing something like omega-6, and you take like your fish oil supplement, and animals, seafood that are bred or live closer to their natural environment tend to have a better fatty acid profile. And so a lot of times we tend to get some meat that's giving us more nutrients if we make those choices. One issue a lot of times with meats is that they can get very expensive, and especially if you want to start looking at something like grass-fed, local, the price can get kind of steep. But one thing to think about is that there's a reason for the price. Some of the things that companies can do to cut down on price are some of the things that might start to jeopardize the quality of what you're getting. And then there are ways that you can still save money, though, on things like this. One is bulk. If you can get a freezer for your garage and start buying in bulk, that's going to help you a lot. Costco actually has some really nice options. They're very clear about their labeling, and a lot of times their meat processing is done in-house at that Costco, so you're getting meat that was processed there versus kind of being frozen for a long time. You can also a lot of times go in on an actual animal. My friends and I all purchased a cow together, and we each got a quarter of the cow, and you get a bunch of different types of meat and different options in terms of the mix of fat, 90-10, that kind of thing, ground, steaks. And so things in bulk are always going to be cheaper, and the actual animal that you're getting, which is a lot different than something if you're getting in stores. Use all of the animal. If you want to save more money, use all of the animal. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in eating things like organ meats, etc. And I know that isn't the way a lot of us have kind of grown up eating, but it is one way to save a lot of money. Use the whole animal in whatever way you're able to. And then eating a range of protein sources is another really good way to save money. You might not be able to eat grass-fed beef at every single meal, and that's okay. But you can still have it sometimes, and it's always just about trying to be 1% better every day. It's the same thing we always talk about in WAG. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do this all the time. You just want to try to be better if you can, and if you have that option. So keep that in mind too, and try to think about eating a range. It's a little more difficult, I know, with keto if we can't depend on things like legumes and protein there, but we still have different animal products, dairies, eggs, and all the different meat options that we can look at to consider. I'm going to be attaching notes about all this. I know it's not necessarily a thrill minute, but I'm going to have notes so that you have links to go look at these things later when you're starting to think about the meat that you want to choose and what to do. Because now I want to share with you just a couple different companies that you can look at online to get some things online that, even though it's not local, you can still kind of trust in the quality and the process that went into these products. One is ButcherBox. You may have seen Michael posting about ButcherBox in the members page a couple weeks back. It's a company that is just about getting you meat products, and it's about getting you a wide range of meat products with different types of finishes, different types of environments, different cuts, and a lot of times they can tell you about where they came from and all of that background. And then it's frozen, and a lot of times you can do a subscription service with them and really save money by getting the things you regularly eat through them. Epic is another really good company. They do jerky, they do bars and strips, they do some bone broth. They have a lot of different items. And they are a farm in Austin that Adi and Michael have actually gone to and visited. They've seen what they do. They are grass fed. They are letting the animals live in their usual kind of free range environment. And so it's a really nice company to look at that you know you're getting quality if you buy it. And it's really, really useful to grab their products for on the road. I love their jerky for taking a trip because I know I can get some good protein. It tastes good. And I know I can trust kind of the source versus random kind of like gas store jerky, which is a little scary. And then finally, Trifecta. If you have ever looked at Trifecta's offerings, they're a meal delivery service, and in looking at their meat offerings, they list if their meat is wild caught, if it is grass fed, all those kinds of things. So you have that information, and that's another really good option if you want to try to have something like sent to your house. You could try using some of their meats, and you know you're getting a good quality from them. So that is about all I have to say about meat and looking at different things. Really, it's the more knowledge you have and the more you know about your food, the better it's going to be for you. That kind of goes with vegetables and everything too. It's just having that information and knowing the sources helps you make that strong decision. I'm going to post notes down in the comments once I get them written up out of my chicken scratch. And I'm also going to post some links. And then if you guys have any questions about any of this, or if you want more clarification, go ahead and post those in the comments too, and I'd be happy to let you know. All right, thank you very much. Have a good WAG Unplugged Saturday, and take care.